How does a tax sale work in Georgia? Hey, today I'm going to tell you how a tax sale works in Georgia, and most importantly, how you can succeed in tax sales at getting properties for great prices. Because properties often go at tax sale for literally pennies on the dollar. And at the end, I'm going to share with you a special way that I've found to make money on Georgia properties that you don't even bid on. Isn't that crazy? You can actually make more money not buying a property and letting someone else buy it, and then you can make a ton of cash money in the end. So let's get right into it. So in Georgia, you have to pay your taxes typically in December, and if you don't pay them, then you're going to be in default, and the tax commissioner's office is going to start taking action, and they're going to set it up so you are going to be in tax foreclosure. And if you don't catch up on those taxes, then they are going to sell your property at a public auction sale. So as an investor, you can register for those sales. They're public auctions, and you can bid and pick up bargain properties. Typically, the sales are held on the first Tuesday of every month. Tuesday is a holiday, they'll hold it on Wednesday. But you can contact your local tax commissioner and ask them when the sales are. And if you look online, if you just put a simple search in like DeKalb County, Georgia tax sale, then you'll get to the tax commissioner's website. That's going to give you information about the upcoming sales, what properties are listed for sale. You can see all the information, including how much they owe in taxes, what the addresses are of the properties that are coming up. They're generally going to put those ads out at least 30 days in advance of the sale. So it's very easy to just go online. The lists are free, and you can see what properties are coming up. So that's when your work begins. You get the list of properties that are coming up for sale. And the first thing to know is not all the properties are going to be sold. Now that might seem strange. You might say, why aren't they selling them? Because people have the chance to catch up with the taxes before the tax sale. So people can and do catch up on their taxes before the tax sale actually happens. So if you had, let's say, 100 properties on the list as of the first day they advertised the sale, by the time you get to that sale, there are probably 15 or 20 properties left. So that tells you something very important. When you go and look at the properties, which you need to do, you need to look at each property before you go and bid on it. You don't want to do that at the beginning, because if you had 100 properties, of which 80 or 85 of them are never going to get sold, then you want to wait until the sale is closer, like 3 or 4 days away, and then go out and see the remaining 15 or 20 properties that are there. That's a much easier job to just drive by those. And you do need to drive by each property. Either you or someone that you trust needs to go by and check out each property, because you don't know whether the property's occupied or vacant. You don't know what kind of condition it's in, if there's been a fire or any kind of damage. You have no idea about that unless you actually take a look at it. So for every property that you're going to bid on, you do need to have a physical inspection of that property. Either pay for it with someone else or you do it. For the sales, make sure that you check with the tax commissioner's office what the conditions of the sale are. Now, generally speaking, you have to register in advance. You provide ID. They often are going to check to see whether you owe any back taxes on properties yourself. That all across the country will disqualify you from bidding at tax sales. But you need to apply in advance. Usually, in most places, unless you apply to be a bidder in advance, you won't be able to bid. Like, you can't just show up at the courthouse and bid. More typically, you need to register in advance. So always check out the conditions of sale, find out what's required to apply to be a bidder, and also check to see what their terms of payment are. Now, generally, they're going to want a certified check or cash or money order, and they typically want it as soon as that sale ends. So it's not something where you can say, oh, I'll get a mortgage and I'll see you in a month. It's not something where you can talk about paying tomorrow. It's generally what I would call a cash on the barrel head. Now, that's of course an inconvenience, but it's also a big advantage, because many people can't do that, and that means you get better pricing. But just do understand that is part of this game. Also understand that in the tax sale game in Georgia, as well as everywhere else, these properties come without warranties of any kind. They're not going to guarantee the condition. They're not going to guarantee anything other than they're selling that property that they've listed. And that's all they're guaranteeing. So you need to make sure that you check everything out for yourself. They don't hold an open house, so the best you can do is typically drive by the property. If you're smart, you'll get out of the car and go and knock on the door and find out if there's anybody there, find out what they're planning on doing. Are they planning on staying? Are they planning on leaving? Or the old owner? Find out about the condition of the property is the best that you can. Because remember, because these are tax sale properties, they're not maintained. If people don't have money to pay their taxes, they don't have the money to fix the roof either. So always expect the worst with these properties and understand that whatever you're getting into, you really do need to allocate for repairs. That's why the properties go so cheap though, because you can't get thorough due diligence. You can't use a mortgage. So this all leads to lower prices. And that's really good, but you do have to keep in mind that you're not getting this perfectly. Other things you need to watch out for: if it's occupied, you want to know, is that a tenant or is that the old owner? If it's a tenant, hopefully you can get them to enter into a lease with you and you can handle it that way. If it's an old owner, you may have to evict them, and that comes with costs and of course time also. The other thing to know in Georgia, this is probably one of the biggest things, is that Georgia has 1-year right of redemption. What a right of redemption means is that it's the right for the owner to pay the taxes after the tax sale. So let's say that you had a tax sale on January 1st, for example. You're the bidder, you win the property, and then they give you a bidder's receipt, but you don't get ownership of that property until a full year later. Then you get ownership. During that year, the property owner can what's called redeem the property. What redeeming the property means is that they go and they pay the taxes, penalties, and interest, and they get the property back. Now, you as a bidder are not left out in the cold. In Georgia, you get this, what you paid plus 20%. So if you paid $100,000 for a property, say you bought a really nice property, you paid $100,000 for it. Well, they have to give you $120,000, and then in exchange, you don't get the property, but you got $120,000. So a 20% return is really good. And chances are they're not going to do it at the last minute. They're going to do it earlier on. So you may have bought that property 2 months ago at the sale, and then you get what you paid plus 20%, which is fantastic. Now, I wouldn't get overly excited because generally people are not able to redeem the property because it's so expensive. If you think about it, if they couldn't pay the taxes, how are they going to pay you what you bid plus 20%? And I ran into one of these cases in a business that I'm going to tell you about in a minute called Overages, but it was in Georgia. Guy had lost his house for $300,000, meaning the bidders had bid $300,000 for it. Very nice house on a big parcel of land. And when he went to get the property back, he thought he just had to pay his taxes, which was like 10 or 20 grand. It wasn't a lot of money. But what the tax collector said, no, you've got to go and do the redemption process. And what that ended up costing him was not 10 or 20,000 in taxes. It ended up costing him $360,000, which is the $300,000 the bidder had paid for the property at the auction plus 20%. So for most people, it's just totally out of reach to be able to redeem the property. So oftentimes when you're the successful bidder at tax sale in Georgia, you're going to get that property. It's just that you're not going to get ownership for a year. So do keep that in mind as you're navigating through these waters, that is part of what's going on. Also understand there are great opportunities, but there are also things to be cautious of. They sell vacant land, they sell unbuildable land, they sell perfectly nice houses on land, but all of it's there and they don't tell you anything other than this is the property we're selling, here's the opening bid, and that's all they tell you. You have to be responsible for yourself and checking out title, checking out any liens that might survive the sale. For example, an IRS lien will still remain on the property after the sale. Now, there are things to know about that, like for example, an IRS lien lasts for 10 years. And then it's no longer a lien. So probably that lien wasn't put on yesterday, so maybe it's close to maturing and expiring, but you need to know that. And so, thorough due diligence and research is absolutely necessary. I love Georgia, but I love Georgia in a different way. What I do in Georgia is something called overages. Overages is where the property sells for more than the tax debt, which happens all the time. Georgia is a desirable place to live, so properties sell for far more than the taxes routinely. So in overages, that's the difference between what the taxes were, like take the guy I was talking to you about, $15,000 or so worth of taxes, his property sells for $300,000, that means there's $285,000 left over. And that's called overages money. That money, the former owner can get that money if they apply for it, but they usually don't apply for it because they have no idea the money exists. They think, well, they sold my house, so I guess they keep the money. And they being the government, people have no idea that they're often leaving tens of thousands, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of dollars on the table that they could have claimed. And if they don't claim it in Georgia within 5 years, then the money is lost, and it's lost permanently. So that's the business I'm doing in Georgia. It's really great. There are lots of tax sales in Georgia, so it's a really good business to get into. And you can do the business all over the country. Georgia's not the only place. But I love the overages business. If you want to know more about that, I did a video that you can go watch called Intro to the Overages Business, where you can learn about how the overages business works, decide if it might be a business for you. The people I think this business fits for have a couple of aspects to them. One, they want to do something to make some extra money or to have a full-time, full-on business. So we have people that are coming in, they're maybe a little younger, or they're hungry, they want to really build something. They'll do the overages business. You can do it on a pretty big scale if you want to. That's one person. Another person is someone who just wants to escape the rat race. You may have a job, you're like, I'm doing the same thing for 10, 15, 20 years, exhausted from it, I don't want to do it anymore. Overages is a great business because you can start it on the side and you can grow it as large as you want, and it can replace a job income. And obviously it's work and effort, but it can replace a job income. It has that kind of money in the business. So I have people that are nurses that are tired of doing floor work. I have people that are working as plumbers and things like that, physically heavy labor where they're just, their body's beat up. I have people that are executives, like, I don't want to deal with the corporate gobbledygook anymore with, the backstabber over there, the whisperer over there, and the climber over there. Instead, they're ready to, to sort of close the chapter in that corporate life and head out and be the captain of their own ship. That's another person. We also have people getting ready for retirement. They need some extra money. And even people in retirement, they're getting some extra money. What they share in common is they're happy to have their own business to do, be the captain of their own ship. They're willing to take some time and learn and really tackle this business. It's a wonderful business where you help people who've lost everything. They've lost their house. You get them a big windfall of money. You make great money yourself. You get a success fee for each deal that you do. It's really, really cool business. So if you're interested in that, go check out the Intro to the Overages Business. There should be a link that appears up above my shoulder. If you don't see the link, just click on the link underneath and that will work equally well for you. So go do that, click on that link, and I'll see you over in the Intro to the Overages video.